Hi, my name is Jean. I am a filmmaker who's worked in the film industry for over 10 years. I am a cinematographer based here in Los Angeles. I am here with you today to talk about more on the UnAmerican Activities Committee and the Hollywood on Trial. In my research for Hollywood on Trial, I've come across some very key things. For one, union leaders from IATSE, studio executives such as Warner Brothers, other persons of interest in the film industry worked hand in hand with this committee to ensure the indictment of these 10 people who essentially stood on trial in defense of their constitutional right and Bill of Rights to essentially not have to answer questions under oath that would take away their First Amendment right. The 10 who were on trial intentionally did not speak out and claim whether or not they were a communist solely on the basis that they wanted to protect the American Constitution, Bill of Rights that claimed that all citizens have a right to their First Amendment. This was the beginning of what we now call the 1A group that has recently restarted again underneath Jane Fonda. These filmmakers who stood in solidarity with the 10, the hope was that the lawyers and attorneys had told them that the Constitution should be upheld in this situation when it went to Congress. In front of a grand jury, 2 of the members were found guilty, and all 10 went to jail for at least 1 year. What proceeded afterwards was at least 10 years of filmmakers being blacklisted and subpoenaed and brought before the committee to then be further scrutinized. Their careers essentially over, people's lives lost. People would have to sell their homes when they were subpoenaed to come before the Un-American Acts Committee, essentially ruining all of their credibility and lives, whether or not they were or were not a part of any communist activity. Just by being subpoenaed, your life was essentially deemed over and your career over. Those who worked with the committee often had their careers ruined far worse than some members who were blacklisted who chose not to. Those who stuck with their First Amendment rights might have had careers, but most were not able to come back into the fold of the Hollywood cinema community. This is important to point out. Why is it important to know that union members were part of the Thomas Committee that tried to indict the 10 on trial in Hollywood? Well, there are many reasons. There were many unions at the time, such as United Artists and the Film and Photo League, to name a few, that were essentially part of union organizations that were working with filmmakers to essentially get better trades union contracts or worker unions contracts. Union organizations such as IATSE, that was specifically a very anti-communist union, specifically attempted to weed out people in their unions that they might deem as communist, thereby working with the Hollywood elite and with the Thomas Committee to essentially gain more power for themselves. After the 10 that were indicted and went to prison, it became the stepping stones for what would then come later, which is the McCarthyism era. Had the original 10, won in their trial, and if the Supreme Court had stood with the First Amendment, then the McCarthyism era would have never happened. None of it would have happened. The major blacklisting events wouldn't have happened, and we would have actually upheld the Constitution. By the Supreme Court sending the 10 to prison and effectively opened the floodgates and positioned executives to have control over the labor movement, control over union rights contracts. Had we, in 1947, been able, as a community, been able to stand with the 1A committee, who were Hollywood celebrities, who stood with the original Hollywood 10, if people in cinema had actually looked out for the Bill of Rights and our First Amendments, the McCarthyism era would have never happened, and we would not be where we currently are right now. We are going to see in the coming eras how the Thomas Committee and McCarthyism hasn't actually gone away, and how these policies and these blacklists have largely laid dormant and have transformed and have changed shape. So as we move forward in Hollywood, let's recognize this.